The untapped power of solitude. How to become ungovernable. You know the secret nobody tells you? Being alone isn't just a preference. It's not simply about avoiding people or dodging another draining social event. It is a power, a truly tangible, life-changing power that most people will never discover because they are too busy running from the one thing that could set them completely free: themselves. Society labels it loneliness. They call it isolation. They diagnose it as something that desperately needs fixing. But the people who have embraced it, the ones who genuinely love being alone, they know a fundamental truth. This solitude is not a weakness. It is the most powerful position you can occupy in a world explicitly designed to keep you dependent, distracted, and ultimately controllable. Let me show you precisely what I mean. Immunity to manipulation. The ungovernable choice. Here is the first immediate, wild realization that hits you when you genuinely love being alone. You become impossible to manipulate. Think about the sheer amount of control people wield over others just through weaponized social pressure. The invisible chains sound like this: everyone's going, you'll miss out. What will people think if you don't show? Don't be so unsocial. These words aren't conversation. They are weapons, invisible chains designed to enforce compliance and conformity. Your coworker pressures you to grab expensive, mandatory drinks after work when you're utterly exhausted. Most people attend because they are terrified of being perceived as unfriendly, or worse, irrelevant. Your family uses carefully calibrated guilt to push you into an obligation you resent. Most people cave because they cannot bear the silent judgment or the emotional withdrawal. But you, the person who genuinely loves and protects their solitude, you are inoculated against these tactics. Someone tries to guilt trip you? The attempt simply doesn't land. You are no longer afraid of disappointing them more than you are afraid of disappointing yourself. Someone uses FOMO, the fear of missing out, against you. It backfires entirely. You are not afraid of missing their boring dinner party because you have something better waiting: your own company. Someone labels you unsocial? It doesn't hurt. You made peace with being different long ago. You have built an immunity to the social manipulation that governs and diminishes most people's entire lives. And that isn't just freedom. That is pure, raw power. The power to make profound decisions based on what is actually right for your growth, instead of what simply keeps everyone else comfortable and compliant. The power to say no without a single shred of guilt. The power to walk away from any person, place, or situation that doesn't genuinely serve your highest self. Most people spend their entire lives being subtly pushed and pulled by social pressure they don't even recognize as control. They believe they are making their own choices, but in reality, they are merely fulfilling a long list of external expectations. But you have identified and broken out of that invisible prison. And once you are truly out, you can never, ever be locked back in. Radical clarity, the silent advantage. You want to know what happens to your brain when you spend real, protected time alone. It gets sharp, not just a little sharper. I'm talking about a level of mental clarity that most people haven't experienced since they were children, before the world started pouring its noise into their minds. Here's what everyone else is doing with their minds. They are filling them with noise. Constant, meaningless, draining noise. Other people's opinions, other people's drama, other people's problems, other people's expectations, other people's volatile energy. Their brain is like a slow, sputtering computer, running 50 complex, draining programs at once, most of which they didn't even choose to open. And they wonder why they are always tired, why they can't think straight, why they can't figure out what they actually want out of life. But when you love being alone, and when you protect that solitude like it's a sacred, non-negotiable resource, something incredible happens. Your mind clears. All that draining external noise is gone. All those other people's demanding voices in your head fall silent. All the mental clutter from trying to please everyone and be everything to everyone is meticulously erased. And suddenly you can think, really think. Not just surface-level thinking, not just reactive, anxious thinking, but deep, clear, powerful, focused thinking. You can solve long-standing problems that stumped you for months. You can perceive intricate patterns you never noticed before. You can make connections between disparate ideas that seemed impossible when your brain was cluttered with everyone else's input. This is precisely why the greatest thinkers, the most prolific creators, and the most revolutionary innovators throughout history have been individuals who demanded significant time in solitude, not because they inherently hated people, but because they understood that clarity requires silence. And clarity? Clarity is definitive power. The power to see truth where others see only confusion. The power to understand complex mechanisms that others can't grasp. The power to make decisions that truly align with your deepest, most authentic truth, instead of passively following the desperately anxious crowd. Most people's minds are so crowded with other people's noise that they don't even know what their own original thoughts sound like anymore. But yours is clear, sharp, powerful, and that grants you an unfair advantage. Energy conservation, the power to outlast. Let's talk about the most valuable, non-renewable resource you possess, energy. Most people are perpetually exhausted, constantly, permanently drained. They blame it on work, on external stress, on getting older, or on a lack of sleep. But that's not what's draining them. It's people and performance. Every interaction, every obligatory conversation, every draining social obligation, every time they have to put on the required social mask and play the expected role, it costs vital energy. Sometimes a little, sometimes a huge amount, but it always results in a net cost. And they are spending this energy all day, every day on things that give them absolutely nothing meaningful back. Fake conversations that lead nowhere. Social events they dreaded attending. Relationships they maintain purely out of obligation or comfort. Performances they are putting on for an audience that doesn't genuinely care about their well-being. By the end of the day, by the end of the week, they are utterly empty, running on fumes, barely surviving until the weekend. Except they don't truly rest, because the weekend is immediately filled with more social obligations, more expected performances, more vital energy they don't have being spent on people and situations that aren't worth the cost. It's a relentless hamster wheel of exhaustion that never ends. But when you love being alone, you have found the cheat code to this exhausting system. You are not constantly bleeding vital energy into meaningless, draining interactions. You are not performing for anyone. You are not forced to manage other people's volatile emotions or walk on eggshells around their deep-seated insecurities. You are actively conserving your energy, protecting it fiercely, and using it only on pursuits that actually matter to your life and purpose. And the result? You possess a reservoir of deep, sustained energy that everyone else lacks. Energy to focus on your most important projects. Energy to pursue your most complex interests. Energy to think deeply, create meaningfully, and actually live instead of just desperately surviving. While everyone else is complaining about being tired, you are thriving, building, creating, and moving forward because you are not wasting your life force on empty transactions. That's not just smart. That is true power. The power to outlast everyone. The power to keep going when they've long since burned out. The power to build something lasting while they are too exhausted to do anything but scroll their phones and passively consume. System awareness. Seeing beyond the script. Here's where it gets truly interesting. When you spend enough time alone, really intentionally alone, in genuine solitude, you begin to see things that everyone else is completely blind to. You see the subtle patterns, the unspoken scripts, the deep-seated programming. You realize that most people aren't actually living their lives. They are simply following a comprehensive set of instructions they don't even know they received. The instruction set looks like this: get the mandatory good grades, secure the respectable job, acquire the necessary house, get married by the prescribed age, have the required number of kids, attend all the mandatory parties, post the perfectly curated pictures, collect the necessary likes, compete, compare, consume, and then immediately repeat. And here's the crazy part. They think that's just life. They assume everyone does it. They genuinely believe it's normal and necessary. They don't even know they are following a script because they never stop long enough to critically think about it. They are too busy frantically performing, too busy desperately keeping up, too busy doing what they are perpetually supposed to do to ever question whether they should be doing it at all. But when you are alone, when you have protected space to actually think without immediate interruption or a demand for your attention, you can see the whole mechanism clearly. The entire system is a game, a rigid script, a set of rules that someone else wrote, and everyone is just playing along without question. And once you see it, once you really see it, you can never unsee it. You watch people stress intensely about meaningless things, chase transient objects that will never fulfill them, sacrifice their most valuable inner peace for status that won't last, waste their precious life trying to impress people they don't even genuinely like, and they don't even realize they are doing it. They genuinely believe this chaotic state is what life is supposed to be. Why? Because they never allowed themselves the time or space to conceive of a different path. They were too busy performing to ever stop, breathe, and ask the single most important question: wait, why am I doing this? This is the profound power of awareness, the power to see the game while everyone else doesn't even know they are playing it, the power to recognize the rigid script while everyone else thinks they are improvising their own destiny, the power to understand the system while everyone else assumes it's just the way things are. You are not necessarily outside the matrix, but you can see the code running. And that awareness, that unique ability to see what others can't because they never gave themselves the silence to think, is one of the most powerful assets you can ever possess. The unbreakable core, foundational resilience. You know what's interesting about people who love being alone? They don't break, not the way everyone else does. Here is what happens to most people when things inevitably go wrong. When a major relationship implodes, when friends suddenly drift away, when they lose their job or their status or whatever external validation they've been desperately using to define themselves, they collapse. Their entire world shatters because their entire world was precariously built on things outside themselves, on other people, on transient validation, on guaranteed belonging. And when those external things disappear, they are left empty, lost, and fundamentally broken. But the person who loves being alone, they have built their foundation on something that can never be taken away: themselves. Their happiness does not depend on other people liking them. Their worth does not depend on external validation or titles. Their peace does not depend on social acceptance. They've done the painful, essential work of building a solid core, an unshakable center that holds steady no matter what terrifying chaos is happening around them. A relationship ends? They are okay. They've always been completely okay alone. Friends disappear? They are fine. They were never dependent on them anyway. Job loss, status gone, reputation damaged. They are still standing, still solid, still entirely themselves. This is the ultimate power of self-sufficiency. Not the fake, performative kind where you pretend you don't need anyone while secretly craving validation. But the real kind, where you are genuinely and profoundly complete on your own. When you have this, When you have built that unbreakable foundation, you become a person that life simply cannot knock down. You can weather any unexpected storm, survive any loss, and rebuild after any disaster. Because the most important thing, your relationship with yourself, your inner peace, your core stability, that is always profoundly intact. Most people are walking around one bad day away from a complete breakdown. But you are solid, grounded, and fundamentally unbreakable. That's not just comforting, that is powerful. Curated relationships, the power of choice. Here is the beautiful paradox that consistently blows people's minds. The more you love being alone, the better your relationships inevitably become. It sounds counterintuitive. How can needing people less make your connections stronger? But it's an absolute truth, and it is one of the most powerful social advantages you gain. When you are not desperate for connection, when you are not trying to use other people to frantically fill an internal void, everything changes. You stop attracting desperately needy people. You stop ending up in draining transactional relationships. You stop tolerating self-destructive behavior that you know you shouldn't endure. You show up as a complete person instead of a half person desperately looking for external completion. And when you do that, when you come to relationships from a place of fullness instead of crippling emptiness, you gain the right to be choosy, selective, and intentional. You don't settle for draining relationships because being alone is always a vastly superior option to being miserable. You don't stay in toxic friendships out of quiet obligation because your solitude is too sacred, too valuable to sacrifice for people who actively subtract from your life. The relationships you do have become real. They are not based on need. They are not based on the fear of being alone. They are not based on obligation, guilt, or social pressure. They are based entirely on genuine connection, mutual, non-transactional respect, and true compatibility. This is the power of choice. The power to consciously choose people instead of frantically needing them. The power to walk away from what doesn't serve you. The power to set non-negotiable standards and fiercely stick to them. Most people are trapped in exhausting relationships, friendships, romances, family dynamics that actively drain them, hurt them, or hold them back. But they can't leave because they are more terrified of being alone than they are of being miserable. But you have successfully eliminated that fear, and with it, you have gained the profound power to curate your entire life, to keep only the few people who truly add value to it, and to release the many who subtract from it. The people you keep get the real you, not the performing version, not the people-pleasing version, but the authentic, unfiltered you. That's the kind of profound relationship most people will never experience because they are too busy pretending to be what others want them to be. But you're not pretending anymore, and the people who love you love the actual you. That is not just nice, that is powerful. Focused creation, the engine of accomplishment. Here is something the system desperately wants to obscure. Great work, real, meaningful, world-changing work does not happen in crowds. It happens in solitude. You know why? Because creation demands deep focus. The kind of focus you cannot possibly achieve when you are constantly interrupted by other people's needs, opinions, and endless expectations. Most people have brilliant ideas, huge dreams, things they genuinely want to build or create or accomplish, but they never do it because they are too busy being perpetually available to everyone else, too busy attending mandatory social obligations, too busy performing in the theater of everyone else's lives. Their entire creative energy gets bled dry before they ever get a chance to use it on something that truly matters. But when you love being alone, when you protect that dedicated time like it's sacred, you possess something most people desperately lack: space, time, energy, and focus. The exact resources required to actually create something lasting. And in that space, In those quiet, uninterrupted hours where nobody is demanding your attention, magic happens. You write the book, you build the business, you develop the complex skill, you create the definitive art, you solve the technical problem, you figure out the thing that has been stumping you for months. This is the power of focused creation, the power to actually manifest your most important ideas instead of just talking about them, the power to build something real instead of just endlessly dreaming about it, the power to make real progress while everyone else is stuck in neutral. Most people will never create anything truly meaningful, not because they lack the ability, but because they never give themselves the solitude required to do the difficult work. They're too busy being social, too busy being available, too busy being everything to everyone. But you are not. You have consciously chosen yourself. You have chosen your work. You have chosen the few people who actually matter. And that profound choice, that decision to prioritize creation and genuine deep connection over superficial social acceptance, gives you access to a level of achievement that most people will never even begin to reach. Inner peace, the ultimate power. Let's talk about the one thing everyone is actually chasing: peace. That is what all the consumption, all the achievement, all the social climbing, all the performance is truly about. People think if they just get enough money, enough status, enough friends, enough likes, they will finally feel at peace. But it never comes because they are looking in the wrong place. Peace does not come from external things. It never has. It never will. Peace comes from within. And the only reliable, consistent way to find it is to spend time alone. Real time. Not fake alone time where you're still frantically connected to everyone through your phone. Real solitude, where you are just there with yourself, with your difficult thoughts, with the profound quiet. Most people are so addicted to external noise that they have never experienced real, fundamental peace. They don't even know what it feels like. But you do, because you've spent time in the quiet. You've made friends with silence. You've discovered that the peace everyone is searching for externally has been residing inside you all along. And that discovery changes everything. Because when you possess true inner peace, when you have found that deep center of calm that exists regardless of the chaos around you, you stop needing all the external stuff everyone else is desperately chasing. You don't need constant validation because you are already at peace with yourself. You don't need endless entertainment because inner peace is more profoundly fulfilling than any fleeting distraction. You don't need to prove anything to anyone because your peace does not depend on their fleeting opinion. This is the ultimate power. The power to be okay no matter what the world throws at you. The power to remain centered when everything around you is swirling chaos. The power to find deep contentment in the simplest things because you are not using external stuff to fill an internal void. Most people will spend their entire lives and all their money chasing something you've already found for free, in silence, alone. That's not just fortunate, that is powerful. Time ownership, the selfish wisdom. Time is the most valuable, non-renewable resource anyone has. You can always make more money. You can always make new friends. But time, once it is gone forever. And most people are relentlessly giving theirs away every single day to people who don't deserve it, to obligations they don't care about, to performances that mean absolutely nothing, to a society that will take every second you are willing to give and immediately demand more. But when you love being alone, when you understand the genuine value of your solitude, you stop giving your time away so freely. You become selfish with it. And that is not a bad thing. That is wisdom. You start asking the crucial question that most people never ask. Is this truly worth my time? Someone wants to meet up. Is this worth your time? Or would you rather spend that time alone, working on something that actually matters to your purpose? Some event demands your attendance. Is this worth your time? Or is it just another performance in someone else's emotional theater? Some obligation demands your presence. Is this worth your time? Or are you just showing up because you are afraid of being judged? This is the power of time ownership. The power to confidently say no. The power to fiercely protect your hours. The power to spend your finite life on things that actually fulfill you instead of merely satisfying other people's endless expectations. Most people look back on their lives and realize they fundamentally wasted it. They gave their time to jobs they hated, to people who didn't appreciate them, to obligations that meant nothing. But you won't, because you are consciously choosing yourself. You are protecting your time. You are spending your most valuable resource on things that truly matter to you. That's not selfish. That is powerful. Conclusion: the ultimate threat to the system. Here's what it all boils down to. The people who love being alone have discovered a secret that threatens everything society is built on, that you don't need what they are selling. You don't need constant connection to be happy. You don't need external validation to feel worthy. You don't need to follow their tired, rigid script to find fulfillment. You found power in a place they can't monetize, in a space they can't control, in a truth they can't manipulate. And that makes you dangerous. Not dangerous in a violent way, but dangerous to the system, dangerous to the status quo, dangerous to the machine that relentlessly runs on people's deep-seated insecurity and primal fear. Because a person who is genuinely comfortable being alone, who has found peace, clarity, energy, and purpose in solitude, that person cannot be controlled. They can't be pressured into chasing whatever is currently trending. They can't be guilted into relationships that drain them. They can't be manipulated into living a life that doesn't fulfill them. They are free, truly free. And freedom, real, genuine, unshakable freedom, is the most powerful thing anyone can possess. So let them call you weird. Let them say you're unsocial. Let them think you are lonely or broken or wrong. You know the truth. You have found the hidden power of those who embrace solitude. And once you have it, nothing and no one can ever take it away. Keep protecting your solitude. Keep building your power. Keep being the man who has figured out what most people never will. That being alone isn't a weakness. It is the strongest, most powerful thing you can be.